spent the whole hour there just trying to give a sense of what's in this Aleph Bet. And if I go to John 1:1, and it says, in the beginning was the Word, what word? Well, if this is that word, then I could read all the other, you might say, clues. If I say, well, as a riddle, what's that word of John 1:1? And I could say, well, in the beginning was the Word, and it was with Elohim. Well, the word with is the letter bet, used as a prefix letter. It means in, on, with, among, through, against, or in the condition of. It means at least those 7 different things. So it says it's with Elohim. It's the letter bet and then the word Elohim. It's the English that says with. There might be another way to determine the betness of that sentence. The word is bet Elohim. The word is the body of Elohim. The word is the universe of Elohim. The verse is the word is the container which Elohim is going to inhabit or project himself into, like the womb that captures the beginning of another life form. The word is that which the life part of the noon is going to go into the bet of the word. The noon of Elohim is going to insert itself into the betness of the word. And yet, the word is Elohim. Well, the isness is the alephness. So the word is the alephness of Elohim, but that same word is going to be the betness of Elohim. That the alephness will somehow reduce itself down to this little squiggly thing like in the letter Q, the kuf, and inject itself, insert itself into the universe of that word. Can it do that? Can the alephness do that? Why not? What else is it going to do? You're going to tell the alephness what it can do, what it should do, what it would do, what it wouldn't do, what it... But then I could sit here and look around the universe and say, well, I'm going to presume, I'm going to make up a rule as a scientist, as a theologian, that everything that exists must constrict what the alephness does, that it fits within this fractal pattern. Well, it might, or maybe it doesn't. But the fact that I can say, well, there's the male and female making the other, or there's the mitosis event, it could make, the alephness could make up any event it wants to. So in my personal thinking, if the alephness wants to somehow put itself within a container of betness, within the alephness, that's its own whim to do something. What else is it going to do? I don't know. Before there was something, there was nothing, there was everything, there was the infinite. I don't know what it was doing, but all of a sudden one day, before there was a day, before there was once upon a time, before there was time, the alephness decided to make this Aleph Bet thing as a universe that it was going to go into. Why not? If it created the human Adam, the being of Adam, male and female, and decided to put itself into the female to take on the Adam body, the Adam Bet, to operate within the Bet of Earth, which operates within the Bet of the universe, why not? It wouldn't, it couldn't, it shouldn't, it oughtn't. Do whatever it darn well pleases. Can it? Did it? Why not? Let's presume it didn't. Let's presume it did. You can invent your own imaginary world. You, as an individual, can do the Aleph thing and invent your own universe and live inside of it. This is the notion that I've been trying to describe the last couple of weeks about the Aleph Bet. I can choose for the Aleph Bet to be my universe that I live within. It's right there in John 1:1. The Word is Elohim. The Word was with Elohim. The Word was the universe that Elohim put himself into. And then for Yeshua to say, I only say the things I hear my Father saying. I only do the things I see my Father doing. If the alphabet is the ruach of Elohim, the mind, the expanse, that's the universe. If the alphabet is the universe of Elohim, the alphabet is the ruach, hakadosh, hakodesh, the kiddush of Elohim. So if this alphabet is the expanse, the kadosh, projection, mind, will, journeying experience of Elohim, and Yeshua says, that's my only universe also. Follow me. I'll take you on this derek hakadosh, this trail, this journey of into this realm. Then if he says my only experience is what I apprehend, I view, I see, I have the essence of my Father's experience in this thing, call it a labyrinth, call it a trail, a journey, a derek, a universe. And he says, follow me and I'll take you on it. Okay, sign me up. How do I do it? I'm choosing to make this my reality, my universe, because he did. Yeshua told us he did, and John 1:1 gives us the information of it being way back at the beginning before there was even Genesis 1. So John 1:1 is a description of what happened before Genesis 1:1 ever happened. But the same model of the Genesis 1 Yehi Or is the same model of the virgin birth, is the same model of the wiggling strand of information, which itself creates something that we call a quark, which itself is something we call an electron, which is the opposite wiggle motion of an oscillating packet of energy, which is otherwise known as a photon or an element, which makes up matter. So all this stuff is just pure science. So for me to say I'm going to limit my universe, my perspective of the world to this alphabet, so it's like being, being staged within this, wrapped around, it's like, it's bigger than the universe. Everything that is real, everything that's unreal, everything about the universe is contained within this. Now, by me trying to describe these things, I heard it said many years ago, and I don't even know what they mean, but I heard it said that them Jews think that the whole world, the whole universe was made from these alphabet letters. That's why the letters of the alphabet to the Jews are sacred or holy or kadosh. What do they mean by that? What are you Jews talking about? You're an infidel, a goyim. Shut up and go away. You don't even count. You're not one of us. You're an animal. You're a brute beast of ignorance. They have no obligation to talk to us. But I don't claim to be a brute beast of ignorance, a goy, a Gentile. Because you see, I can choose to be Israel as a proselyte, as a sojourner. And Yahweh said there's one Torah for the native born as well as for the sojourner. In Exodus. Now, genetically, maybe I can hunt down my DNA or get it tested, or I can look at my family name and go, what would these letters be in Hebrew? And hey, there's a family on record in the Bible that, or maybe I can, none of that to me, it matters. It might matter, but it doesn't matter to me. I can choose to be Ish LaYahweh, Gabor LaYahweh, man of Yahuwah. Gabor is not just man. Well, Gabor is man, but it means hero, knight, champion, warrior, a man of man of action, a man of stalwart essence, of dignity, of valor, kind of like the what's the word in Ashat Chayil, Proverbs 31. That's a valiant woman, but Chayil, Het Yod Lamed, is the word meaning military and valiant. And in other words, it's not one sitting back and waiting for things to happen. You could say it's a type A personality rather than a type B. I don't know how many types they have in reference of that. There's 4 personality types that weave together in some psychological studies. It doesn't matter. It's like, who do you choose to be? Courage is also the word ruach. Can you choose your ruach, or is your ruach imposed upon you? So there's psychological studies where they say, well, a person, an atom, a human being, depending on what label you want to give yourself, a self, character, personality type is affected or restricted or given allowance by either environment or genetic makeup. So according to your DNA, your family traits handed down generation after generation, or perhaps your environment, whether you're raised at a certain time or in a certain place or a certain class of wealth or opportunity for education or experience, so you become. Yeah, but I think also you can choose to become, and you can read the scripture, the Bible, and you can ask to become. You can say, hey, there's a verse in the scripture that says, if any man lacks wisdom, let him ask of Elohim. And with all your wisdom, make sure you get understanding. It's like, can I have an apple pie, a slice of apple pie? Hey, could you put ice cream on that? That's the same concept. Ask him for wisdom and get understanding. Ask him for the understanding. And that's then you're not subject to your DNA or your environmental upbringing. You can plug in something from outside that's of him. Hey, wait a minute, that's that letter Kuf picture again. There's the circle. Hey, this is what I was given. This is where I was placed. Time, space, genetics, experience. But we can ask for this incoming otherness, this little squiggly, snake-like, noon-like spark from Elohim. Will you please noon me? Thank you, Yahuwah. How do you define that? Again, we're looking at Nun Bet Aleph. Those are just the 3 letters, and I'm trying to elaborate the contemplation of that one 3-letter word. Last week I was looking at Bet Kaf, the first word of Psalm 71. In you, Yahuwah. First 2 words of Psalm 71. But if Nun Bet Aleph, see, Nun Bet, well, that's not even a regular word. You'd have to look at it and put a 3rd letter or put another letter in between the Nun Bet in order to have it make sense. It's not a word in the dictionary that I remember, but Bet Aleph means to import, to arrive, to enter, to welcome, to come into, incoming. So the Nun is, the incoming. Well, that's again the picture of the Kuf. That's the picture of the womb with the incoming act of fertilization, an act of quickening, an act of Yeshua telling Lazarus to arise from the dead, or Yeshua or one of the disciples, rise up and walk. That's a Nun Bet Aleph sort of event. Well, that's not a prophecy. It's not a prophecy, right? But Nun Bet Aleph is translated prophetic, prophecy, prophet. But see, as soon as you take that English word and you've entrapped your mind. So what I'm trying to say is that if if as an individual, you, somebody, whoever's listening or thinking, wants to take your limited universe, like the circle part of the kuf, or even look at the letter ayin. The letter ayin drawn as an eyeball, some people draw it as just a circle, or a circle with a dot in it, or maybe elliptical with a dot, or even the modern is kind of opened up and it's like a fruit with a seed in it. I draw it on purpose as a circle, not a round circle, but I draw it elliptical as if there was an open gate, as if it was a pen holding an animal and a dot in the middle. Well, that's like an animal in the pen. That's a picture type, a metaphorical type of the dog in the doghouse, the dot in the dagesh in the letter bet. It's a picture of the mind with an idea in it. It's a picture of, well, there's a picture of the word pei resh being a bull, and that you don't just leave the bull with the herd. Well, in nature, maybe the bull's always with the herd, but the farmer, the rancher, will keep the bull separate until he wants the herd to be fertilized, and then he'll put the bull in with the cows. And the bull's job is to fertilize all the cows, impregnate all the cows. But other than that, you keep the bull penned up, or you keep the cows penned up. And it's like, what are we talking about here? You see, the ayin is a picture of a fruit with a seed within itself. And you go back to Genesis 1, and when he put plants on the earth, he said that the earth should bring forth plants, trees bearing fruit, and the fruit has the seed of the next generation of the DNA of the tree within itself. That's the system that he built. The first command that he gave to Adam was, the first word is Peru, Pei Resh Vav. Peru, U, Revu. The Vav, does it sound like a V? Does the Vav sound like a W, an O, a U? So Peru, U, Revu, Pei Resh Vav, Vav, Resh Balet Vav, Resh Bet Vav. Be fruitful and multiply. He established that right after he said, let there be light, and created the space, the environment, the staging for Adam. He then told Adam, Peru Uruvu. And while you're at it, Shomer the garden, tend, keep the garden. The task of occupation was Shomer, Shin Mem Resh, the Gimel Nun, the garden. But if the first command was, be fruitful and multiply. So I can look at the letter ayin and say there's something about being fruitful. There's something about having that DNA in the seed. Well, so one of the things we have these days is genetically modified food. Or we'll have seedless grapes, seedless watermelon, seedless lemons. Oh, it's such a bother. Just get rid of those things. Yeah, but as soon as you get rid of those things, the seed is no longer for the seed to not be in the fruit is no longer of the same essence and substance. Well, it's just missing the seed. No. The fact that it can't bring forth a seed, it's crippled, it's impotent, it's changed. Well, I could say, well, let me look at words spelled with the letter ayin. Tav, the last letter, is a mark or a sign. Or if you put an X, a lot of times that's like a skull and crossbones. You know, like my face above these two arms. It's like, I don't have to give effect. It's smile. I'm just saying that the head with the crossbones, don't go here. You're dead. No quarter. Pirate flag. That's what it means, because the X is something that means something, because in the letters Tav, it's a sign or a mark or a target. Do you understand what that means? If you see X and you go, whoa, you fall over a cliff, or your car, you're driving down a road and there's a big X and you drive down it and you go over into a pothole or the bridge is washed out, Didn't you know what the sign means? So there's this kind of this universal concept that X is stop, don't do this. But for you to have to be able to see the sign and understand the sign means that you're ironing the tav, because the letter eyeball, the letter iron drawn like an eyeball is not just an eyeball, but it's like there's a light on in the room, there's an idea in your head, there's a dot in the circle, there's a bull in the pen. The word ion can mean a deep well, a spring that comes up from a geyser from down below, but it can also mean weigh carefully, balance exactly, determine specifically. It's not just thinking, it's coming to a conclusion of measuring, of indexing, of cataloging, of appropriating understanding with a value. What am I looking at here? I don't know what I'm looking at. I'm just seeing a blur. Can you identify the difference between the brown thing and a green thing, a round thing and a straight thing? I'm looking at out this window at nature. There's a tree, there's sky, there's clouds. I'm now giving labels of identification. I can sort it out by shape, by color, by location. But if it's all two-dimensional, there's no location. I'm assuming a 3D location. But see, I'm ironing what I see in this window. The word spelled ayin tav is simply the word time. If tav means there's a sign or a mark that means something. Now, in one case, because it's the last letter, it can mean this is the sign of the end, okay? You come down the end and close your eyes. So when somebody's dead, you'll see cartoon, they draw X's on their eyes. He's dead, that's what that means. Or maybe it means he's asleep. Nah, it's more like he's dead. That's what that means. See, things mean things. When I say go watch cartoons, I'm not necessarily being insulting, but people draw things into cartoons to learn something. You learn stuff in cartoons and you bring it back into real life. You got to start somewhere. Cartoons, you don't have to think very much. You get programmed into your mind, and then you come back and then you can invoke the things that somebody else has plugged into your head, or you can look at this stuff and do your own thinking. You look at something and you personally, with an aleph autonomy, self-generated, proactive, you measure, you think, you deliberate, you weigh and ponder, you navigate your own consciousness. That's in the picture of the ayin. And if you're looking at things that are symbols with meaning, like the 22 letters, you're ironing the tav. How's that the word time? Now I have to make something up. I'm going to say, well, maybe it's the time that you start doing that. What if it's not? I just made that up. Okay, you tell me. Why is the word time in Hebrew composed of the two letters that mean, if you read them in sequence order, ayin, tav, that mean weigh, measure, balance, determine, the shape of a symbol that means something? Why is that the word time? And if you say, I don't know and I don't care, then it's like, okay, then this isn't the time for you to understand what this letter shapes mean. Go watch cartoons, or go watch sports, or go take a walk. It's okay. No shame, no blame, no. If it's not time for you to do that, then maybe it will be later. Maybe it will be when you choose it to be, or maybe it's not the time. I don't know. I chose that now is the time for me. In fact, I made a determination 20 years ago, 2004, to look at these things, to comprehend these things, and to master these things on purpose. Why? It was a thought that I decided to play into on purpose, with purpose, for my self trajectory. It was a decision. And I didn't have anybody telling me or suggesting me to do it. And I didn't have any guide showing me how to do it, but I decided to do it. And I'm saying that because you can decide that for yourself. And you can say, hey, please give me wisdom, give me understanding. And if this is the Ruach HaKodesh, which I didn't know at the time, that was all surmising. And I didn't know that Eining the Tav was looking at the life within. See, I could say the round part of the ayin is like the shape of the letter. And it's like the shape of the letter is, how's the shape of a letter a pen? P-E-N, like the pen that you put an animal in. The bull inside the pen is the Tav. What does that mean? The procreative source of life vitality, like a bull, inside the pen, inside is like the idea inside the container, which is the shape of the letter. The fertility of the bull contained within the shape of the letter. Well, whose fertility? Yahweh, the great Aleph. His DNA, his spark of life, his bullness, vibrant, verdure, life force, noons into the bet, giving then an entrepreneurial agent of selfness, of another identity, its own Alephness. Thank you very much. So I could say those people who talk about Father God, Mother Earth, they're kind of right. If the bull is the divine source and the cosmos, Earth, is the feminine mother, then I, a random individual with autonomous consciousness, is the zygote that's generated. It all fits. Is that the time of ironing the Tav? If I can look at these Hebrew letters and see that, then the time is now. The word now, right now, is spelled ayin, tav, hey. Hey is a suffix, is the feminine suffix, but it means to, here it is, to put it on display. Hence, there's the picture of an arrow that's lit up like the flashing sign, open, or caution, or go this way, or it's information of catching your attention. Like the way of drawing, hey, the guy with his hands up, hey. So why would ayin tav hey mean right now? I choose to believe that what that means is, can you comprehend, can you perceive that to know the meanings of the letters is an expression of, hey, now's the time to deal with this. Did you ever have that experience before? Did you have the experience last year, 10 years ago? If you're listening to this, you're having the experience now, because I'm making it evident. Now is the time to realize that in these letters, they all have a meaning of Yahuwah's own personal DNA as a fertility generator, like the bull within the pen, that if he's let loose, it'll cause this other universe to become. The concept of the powerful inseminator. The bull, Peresh, Ayin Dalet. Ayin Dalet, Ed. Well, Ayin Dalet is a witness or a testimony, a bejewelment, ornamentation, adornment. He then also said, a man's testimony, a man's word of, I did it, I didn't do it, his alibi needs to be supported by two or more witnesses. So if you have a man with two witnesses, that's a believable truth. Or you could presume it's truth. What if he has his two friends lie for him? So if you have the bull as the man trying to connect to make the impregnation with the two witnesses, the testifiers, hey, that looks like a Vav man with the two hays, the adornment of the masculine apparatus, if you know what I'm gesturing. Why does the name Yahweh have Yod, he will, Hey, Vav, Hey? The two testimonies, testifiers of the Vav connector, but the Vav is the number 6, which is the masculine suffix, which kind of like the Messiah, Mashiach concept, and you've got the Hey revelation of the Torah, and you got the Hey revelation of the Ruach. So you've kind of got in Yod, Hey, Vav, Hey, the he will, the Yod is the reference of third person narrative. Look what he's going to do. And then you got the Hey, Vav, Hey. But Ayin Dalet literally can mean, do you see the life of the Dalet? Dalet's way over here. The Dalet is the word door, but Dalet Lamed Lamed is a word that means to be impoverished, to hang down, like you're weak, like you're pathetic. It's if you're dragging a big branch of, say you cut down a branch and you've got, you're dragging it to the burn pile or to the trailer, or you're going to make a sukkah and you got this big branching and standing up. To be dragging a branch that's trailing behind you is also Dalet Lamed Lamed. It's something that can't stand up on its own. It's not a tree like a samik. A Dalet is something that has hang down loose. If you look in the dictionary for Dalet Lamed Lamed, it also means, or Dalet Lamed Tav, Dalet Lamed Hey, look at those three words. It's to drop a bucket down into a well to gather up the water and bring it up. To drop down a bucket in order to gather up and bring up to the top. Now, Yahusha said, I'm the door, no one enters my Father's house except through me. The door, a Dalet Lamed Tav, is a Dalet. Number 4, the fourth letter, Dalet. But Tav as a suffix can just put it into a tense of being. Prefix or suffix as a Dalet, as a Tav is just, it hasn't happened yet, or it's kind of like the concept of present action versus it's either past or future. But it's the Dalet Lamedness, will happen, has happened, is the Tav Yod sort, or the Yod Tav sort of suffix. So Dalet Lamed Tav, Dalet. The Dalal or the Dalet, the Dalit in India is the poorest class, poorest caste of class of people. Interestingly enough, that's pure Hebrew. The poor, the weak, the powerless. Why would Yahusha say, I'm the poor, weak, unempowered doorway into my Father's house? No one enters my Father's house except through me. Well, maybe that was a misquote. Maybe he never said that. Maybe the New Testament's bogus. Or maybe what he was saying is that he who was the bet of the Aleph of that mitosis event before the creation of the bet of the universe, the one in that supreme position of all grandeur, of all respect, of all power, of all majesty, of like figure out some other adjectives to apply to somebody in that status. Dalal himself, like this bucket dropped down into the well. Or picture Jeremiah being lowered down into the cesspool and just left there for weeks while the siege of Babylon was happening from Nebuchadnezzar. In a cesspool. He'd probably come out diseased, sores, can hardly breathe, can hardly, just stinking with filth, with infection, whatever they dumped down into the cesspool to torment him more. Yeah, like that. I picture Yahusha being dropped down as the bucket into the well, like if I pictured the Kuf event as this womb or this universe that was injected in the Ruach, of Elohim, the little life of the noon sperm, seed sprout, lightning bolt to impregnate this round part of the Kuf. Look at the opposite, this cesspool that Jeremiah is dropped down into, that Yahusha is being dropped down into, going on a voyage intentionally, proactively, by his own determination to do so, down into the world, like the bucket, that whoever jumps into him, willing to jump into him being the bucket, so that he could pull them up into his Father's domain. I see that is in all the definitions of Dalet Lamed Hey, Dalet Lamed Lamed, Dalet Lamed Tav, Dalet Lamed Vav, Yod. Look at all those words in the dictionary, and they all describe Yahusha doing that for me. If I jump into him, the bucket. You see, if I say Jesus Christ is the door to the Father's house, all who believe in him, all who are willing to choose to believe that he was crucified and rose from the dead get to go to heaven. Okay, whatever, I can believe whatever story. But if I look at, according to this alphabet sequence, describing what I choose to be my universe of reality, I can see that in the spelling of the words. I can see that in the position of the letters. And I can see that to comprehend that is the dot inside the concept of the ayin. If I can picture Yahusha as the bucket being dropped down the well, like the dot in the middle of the ayin, like the bull inside the pen, as the meaning of the shape of the letter inside the shape of the letter. That's the noon inside the samic. That's the meaning inside the orthographic skeletal design of the letter. So noon and samic is like ayoning tav. And if I see Yahusha being the door, the disempowered, though he was of more power than we can possibly know or describe, I can choose to believe that. I can choose to believe that the dot placed inside the womb was a virgin birth event. I can choose to believe it. Is it possible? Why not? Is it probable? It says so. Yeah, but is it true? I don't know. I can choose to believe it's true. I can choose to make this universe of these letters my reality. I can choose that the universe of these letters is like the circle of the ayin and that I'm the one in the middle of it. So in Psalm 71, when David says, in you, Yahweh, that's captured by that picture. That's also ayin dalet, and that's also ayin tav. That's also ayin tav hey right now. Because right now I am, and right now I exist, and right now I think, and right now I have my being in this time and place. Yeah, but how do I know that's what it's talking about? How do I know it's not talking about somebody else a long time ago or a long time? Because it's not about them. It's all about me right now. That's the aleiphness. He gave me an aleiphness. And my aleiphness is I think, I am, I exist right now. That's my prerogative as an aleph. It's not all about you. Yes, it is. He gave each one of us the fact it's all about us. Work out your own salvation in fear and trembling. And he also said something, YHUH is at least recorded as saying something, that whoever will acknowledge him before man, he will then acknowledge before his Father. And what does that mean for me to acknowledge him? Does it mean I have to understand how he became? No. Does it mean I have to be correct in my understanding? Not necessarily. You look at Malachi 3:16. Then those who had a fear, a regard, a reverence of Elohim got together and spoke to each other about his stuff, his Shem. Name, fame, renown, reputation, the occupation of all the concerns, which happens to be these Ruach of Elohim, 22 letters, happens to be YHUH. Does it say that those men who got together and talked about his stuff figured out the truth? Aha, we see, we got it. We got the true doctrines. We've grabbed a hold. Not necessarily, but they just talked about his stuff. And then Elohim says to one of his Melachim angels, hey, grab a scroll, come over here and write down the names of those people who are contemplating my name and sit it right here next to me on my end table, next to my throne. And on the day that I make up, or the day that I present, the day that I reveal my greatest treasure, you'll see the difference between those who think on me and those who don't. Those who take to heart my stuff versus those who don't. Because what's dear to his heart, the things that are chafatzi, my pleasure, my enthrallment, chafatz, is like the dot inside the ayin. And he said, those who seek my desire, because they've chosen to proactively have that intention for their selfness, their own identity, their own being, to choose to be the person who considers what's important to Yahuwah, is the classified distinction of being his people or not being his people, of seeking what he desires versus those who don't care what he desires, who contemplates his Shem versus those who don't contemplate his Shem. So I can look at the meanings of letters, the meanings of words, of the letters that spell various words, plugging YHUH into, see, if he's the Dalet, if he's the door of understanding the meanings of the letters, then if I consider who is YHUH, what did he say, what did he mean? Oh, he started a new religion, said nobody has to do the Torah because it was going to be nailed to the cross. Whoa, no, it wasn't. That's a lie. Why is it a lie? I know it's a lie because he said, I only say the things I hear my Father saying, and I only do the things I see my Father doing. Well, that's Torah by definition. So therefore, for him to nail it to the cross and be done with it, as far as his followers are concerned, doesn't fit, doesn't work. Therefore, it must be a lie. So I can completely at ease in my mind say, for the Christian church to abandon the Moedim, they've jumped ship off Noah's Ark, and they're going to drown in the peril of destruction. For anybody to think that the Torah is nailed to the cross and done away with because it doesn't matter or it's not for us, you've jumped ship off his Father's being. But he allowed that. He even, Ezekiel 20, verse 26, as we looked at a couple weeks ago, he says, I Vav Aleph Shin Mem Mem, so that I can destroy them. You read the beginning of that verse, which we went through. He says, I'm going to teach them for the sake of grace, for the sake of Rachem. It's all ayin bet yod resh. It's all been forgiven, all been done away with. I'm gonna allow them, his people, to be taught. He's not talking about the Christians. He's talking about his people, Israel, the 12 tribes. Ezekiel chapter 20. Although I gave them the Torah, which if a man does, he will live. By it, in it, through it, in its condition. Says that, what, 4 times, I think, in Ezekiel 20, we went through this. Then he says, but because they kept on rejecting me and didn't want my stuff, okay, then I also gave them bad laws nobody can live by, scattering us across the face of the earth and giving us, Roman, British, American law, WHO, WEF, whatever it might be, United Nations stuff, bad laws nobody can live by. Keep changing. I gotcha. Nail you from every perspective. Ezekiel 20:26, I'm going to stage a teaching that says everything's been done away with. So when they run after that gleefully, joyfully, they'll be destroyed. I can destroy them because they've abandoned my Torah. Is that what that's saying? But yet, by that same very teaching, I'm going to come into the universe and be put to the weapon, Hey Vav Zion, thrown into the tomb, Het Tet Yod, as their guilt offering, Aleph Shin Mem, so I can forgive them. That's who I am. Then they'll know I'm Yahweh. It's like, what? How does that work? You got to iron it. You got to weigh carefully, balance exactly, measure specifically, and you got to know what these letters mean. And now's the time. Now's the time to ayin the Dalet, hyphenated, yoked, ayin lameted, with ayin tav. And if you do that, and if you make this your universe, and ask him for the wisdom, and ask him for the understanding, ask him to give you the heart, and then write his words on that heart. There's the verse, take out my heart of stone and give me a heart of flesh. Basar? Heart of basar, heart of good news, a heart able to receive the good news, a heart with a desire, a passion, an enthusiasm. Well, you see, if you do that, you will have a different future than if you don't do that. So this concept of futurology, what does that mean? That means you can change your future. Think of this concept. There was somebody on the internet last week that said, I come from the future. Is time travel possible? I don't know, whatever. But let's say it was. Let's say it is. This guy says, I come from the future, and I'm telling you that this hurricane that just hit Florida is going to be Category 5, and there's going to be 5,000 people die, and it's going to tear the place apart, and blah, blah, blah. Now, it certainly was a pretty rough thing, but I heard that it was a Category 5 in the ocean, but then when it crossed the land of Florida, it reduced down to a Category 3. Still did a lot of destruction, but it wasn't what the guy said. Now let's suggest for a minute, just for the sake of concept, that the guy really was a time traveler. And he says, hey, listen, I lived through it. I know what happened. I'm coming from, 5 years in the future, 50 years, 100 years. I don't know. Not paying any attention to the guy, but this is just something he said. And he says, listen, it's on record that this thing happened and blah, blah, blah. And then, hey, guess what? It was last week. It was a couple days ago. And it didn't happen the way he said. Okay, the guy's a liar. Forget it. Let's move on. No, wait a minute. Let's just think for a moment. What if the guy really is from the future? And what if in his experience, he knows what happened, but yet now it didn't happen? Does it mean he wasn't from the future? No, let's set up that it really was from the future. He was from the future, and he lived through an experience that really happened. And then he's looking back and telling us, who are now living it today, and it didn't happen the way he said. How does that work? Well, he wasn't really from the future. No, let's say he was. It's like, my brain doesn't work this way. Yeah, that's right. We're not designed to think a certain way. But what if by us thinking Yahuwah's stuff, things can change? Retro-causality is one word. Something in the future can change something that happened in the past. What? What if the way the universe was really designed is that for Yahuwah's people to think about Yahuwah's stuff and Yahuwah's Shem and his name, that even if something had happened, it can change what happened. I don't understand how that works. Yeah, it's because my mind is locked into time. But what I'm saying is it's the concept of retro-causality. But what if I'm just saying we don't know the parameters of what can happen, did happen, will happen, but I don't need to know that. All I need to know is Yahuwah said if his people would just trust him and do what he said. So then you have the first Exodus, because there's supposed to be another Exodus, Ezekiel 36, where Yahweh goes and he gathers all the people that he scattered from his people Israel across the face of the earth and brings them back into the land. You know, in the first Exodus, only 2 men believed and trusted what Yahweh said, Joshua and Caleb. And they are the only 2 that's made it into the promised land and lived for many years in the promised land. Just 2. What if you were one of those 2? How many are going to choose to believe what Yahweh said? Just choose to believe. And then make it your universe. Understand the meanings of the letters and surround yourself with his stuff and say, that's the reality. Yeah, but somebody from the future came and said, it doesn't matter. This is the reality. Well, the news items, doesn't matter. Yeah, but the politician and the priest, it doesn't matter. So Jen, just real quick, to go on to Psalm 71 and look at something that David is saying. He's basically saying, there's an interesting verse here. It's I think it's verse 15. My mouth shall recount your righteousness all day long, your salvation, though I know not numbers. I don't know numbers. There's a graphic that I made. I was talking about it up in Sarnia a few years ago. It's a petroglyph, and on the petroglyph is a kind of almost like a stick figure of a guy, and he's got some animals, and he's got dots. And the word written on the petroglyph says Lo Yidati Sefer. And there's a certain verse that says, take the scroll, a sealed scroll, and give it to a literate man who knows how to read and say, read this, please. And he says, I can't read it. It's sealed. Take it to the illiterate man and say, read this, please. And the illiterate man says, Lo Yidati Sefer, which means I don't know how to read. I'm illiterate. What he said was, Lo, Lamed Aleph, Yidati Yod Dalet Ayin Tav Yod, Sefer, Samik Pei Resh. And it's translated, I'm illiterate, I don't know how to read. I don't know books. Sefer is the word for book. But here, it's exact phrase, it says, Lo Yidati Seferot. Seferot, Samik Pei Resh Vav Tav. Well, see, what he says by translation, I know not numbers. But see, it's translated in the other place, I'm illiterate. But the word number, sefer, is plural. What does the word sefer mean? Is it the word for number? It means to count or number. You go back to Genesis 15, Abraham was told to sefer the stars. So he goes out and I don't know how to count the stars. There's too many, I can't count them. But see, sefer doesn't just mean to count. It means to, as a barber cuts hair and gives hair a shape, a coiffure. It's to tell a narrative story. Once upon a time, blah, blah, blah. and they lived happily ever after. The end. The story is Sefer. To put fence posts out in the yard and then string a fence wire or some other wood fabric or something between them is Sefering the boundary of your yard. So a nation who sets up forts, military posts with an imaginary line between them saying, this is our boundary. This is our territory. The other side is the frontier. That's the word Sefer. To draw a line in this between the dots of the stars and then forming a constellation that means something, that's the word Sefer. For me to string these letters together to tell a story is the word Sefer. What did David say? As for me, verse 14, I shall always hope, and I will yet add to all your praise. So David is saying who he's going to be. Let me back up. You withdrew me, this is verse 6, you withdrew me from the innards of my mother. Of you is my praise always. David's saying, I'm just a nobody, but this is who I'm going to choose to be. And you can say, shut up. David was a king. He was a prophet. David was this great warrior. It's like, no. David is saying, I'm just a nobody, but I'm going to choose what my life is going to be about. And this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to praise you always. Verse 7, when I became an example to the multitude, now he's put in a position of king, of warrior, of somebody of note. You were my mighty refuge. David says, it's not about me, it's about me taking refuge in you. David here is speaking of Yahuwah and saying, it's not about me, you are my universe, you are my frame of reference, and I'm just the dot inside, encapsulated within your mind's eye, O Yahuwah, my Elohim. I'm the dot inside, I'm the bull inside your pen. Until you let me out, I'm going to stay here. And if you do let me out, I'm going to be about the business, fertilizing the herd with your reputation, your Shem. That's what he's saying. Verse 8, my mouth was filled with your praise all day long with your splendor. You see, the letter after the ayin is the pei, the mouth. And just like there's a dot, a pupil inside the ayin, he's saying the same picture of ayin in pei is that my mouth will be filled with your splendor, and it's going to sprout Zadi all day long. Verse 9, don't cast me off in time of old age when my strength fails, and when I no longer can run and fight and be the David of prestige. Please don't forsake me, because, verse 10, my foes speak of me, and those who watch for my life consult together, saying, when he gets so old that his God is obviously forsaken him, then we'll nail him. We'll get him. Catch him, because there's no rescuer. Verse 12, O Elohim, don't be far from me. O my Elohim, hasten to my assistance. Let the adversaries of my soul be ashamed and consumed. Let those who seek my harm be wrapped in disgrace and humiliation. Well, just like the dot is wrapped, just like David is wrapped up in Yahuwah's grandeur and refuge, he's using this opposite picture, that his foes be wrapped up in shame, humiliation, and degradation. But see, I think David, because he knows the words, he knows the language, I think David is picturing these things. You're my refuge, my stomach. My noon is memming within your Torah. You see, if I know these letters and I see the pictures of how the letters just sit right next to each other, I can wrap my mind, but it takes me doing it for my own consciousness, my own universe, my own reality, my own being. My Alephness is in this bet. And I can ask him to noon the quickening for me. And then I can read these words of David and see, I can see David doing the same thing. As for me, verse 14, I shall always hope, and I will yet add to your praise. My mouth shall recount your righteousness. My mouth, see the letter Zadi of the word Zadik, means righteousness. My mouth shall always recount your righteousness. That's a Zadi thing. All day long, your salvation, though I know not numbers. I don't know numbers. I don't know how to read. I'm suggesting David does know how to read. Well, then what's he mean? I don't know Sefer. But see, if the word Sefer means to give something a picture, a shape, a reality, like a certain future. See, hope is to project into the future. Once the future has happened, I already know what happened. And I'm suggesting, just like that so-called time traveler says, I already know what happened. And I'm telling you, I'm giving you an insight. This is what happened. I'm saying David's hope and David's mouth of praise might change the future. I don't know the story of what's going to happen. I don't know what's really going to happen. But I can think and I can speak as if what Yahweh said was true. So Joshua and Caleb said, Yahweh said he's the creator of the universe. Yahweh said we are Israel, his people. Yahweh said I'll be your refuge, your offense, your defense. Yahweh said he's going to give us the land, kick out the Canaanites, and we will live in their houses and eat the food from their garden and drink the wine from their vineyard. That's what he said. Let's count on it and do what he said. Let's sit down in Shabbat. Do you have to sit? Well, Shin Bet means sit. Also, he said, don't work. Okay, well, what does that mean? How do we do that? That's its own study. But what he said, let's do what he said, and let's be his people, atah, right now, today. And then he says, verse 16, I shall come with the mighty deeds of Yahweh Elohim. I will mention your righteousness, yours alone. David's not saying, gee, I'm so great, I'm so wonderful. He says, I'm going to mention your righteousness, but the word Zadik is not just righteousness, it's also victory, deliverance, justice. See, that if the Kuf is this picture of this is who he is and what he did and how it works, and he can take this envelope of peril and inject a noon of victory, and we don't even know where it's coming from or how it's going to do it. We don't need to know. We don't need to. We just have to have that hope. And that there's a vitality within having that hope, which will cause it to happen. Think about that. If we can picture our universe like the round part of the Kuf, the Q, and we think the future's already been described, and yet Yahweh retains in his jurisdiction to noon to insert the lightning bolt, that sperm into the uterus of wham, the big bang of, whoa, where did that come from? How did he do that? He's not supposed to be able to do that. Like the virgin birth. I will mention your alone victory, supremacy, ability to inject a Zadi into the ion to your great grandeur, O Resh of sheenness. Yours alone. O Elohim, verse 17, you have taught me from my youth, and until this moment, I declare your wonders. The word wonder is paleo. I'm going to declare your paleo. My mouth is going to sprout Zadi. Or what? Your kufresh? Yod kufresh is a word that means precious, dear, rare, of great value. Who is Yahuwah? What is it to be his people? What can he do? What did he do? What will he maybe do if we just go along with him? Who's Yahusha? How did he get here? What did he come to accomplish? Did he really nail the Torah to the cross? We're told he did by people who don't learn how to read his Hebrew, I'll tell you that. Verse 18, and even until old age and hoariness, that's white-hairedness, O Elohim, forsake me not, until I proclaim your strength to the generation, your might to all who will yet come. David is saying, I have determined since I was young to know who you are, to fathom what you've allowed me to perceive, and I will be the herald to my generation of your grandeur. And please, not yet, one more, Shemini Yatzeret, one more time. Let me relay this information to the next generation before I'm out of here, please. That's the kuf. That's the after this. That's the back of the head. That's what's following. Let me extol your grandeur. Let me lift up your esteem to the next generation before I disappear. Verse 19, and your righteousness or your victory or your salvation, O Elohim, is unto the high heavens. That's this reshining concept. You who have done great things, O Elohim, Mikamoka, who is like you? You who have shown me many and grievous troubles, revive me again, and from the depths of the earth, raise me again. That's a request to be resurrected from the dead. Did David believe in the resurrection of the dead? Looks like it right there. Verse 21, increase my greatness, turn back to comfort me. I shall also thank you on stringed instrument for your faithfulness. O my Elohim, I will sing to you on the harp. O Kadosh of Israel, the Kadosh, my lips shall rejoice when I sing to you, as well as my soul, that you have redeemed. My tongue too shall utter your righteousness all day long, for they are shamed. They are the humiliated, those who seek my harm. David was saying, though I'm, there's the fool. He's dancing. He's going, Paleo-Hebrew stuff. He's saying, listen, this is the glory to see, to reveal the beauty of Elohim unto this eternity beyond fathoming is his being. And if I'm going to be a fool, I'll be your fool pointing at you, Yahuwah. And let those people be put to the shame they think to put me to. But it's not about them, and it's not about the shame. It's about I'll be happy to be put to shame for knowing you, believing in you, trusting you, and singing about your stuff. But see, I'm just saying that if you know the letters, you can map. I will yet hope. The hope set before you is the Zadi and the Kuf. To resurrect and be raised up in the future generation and this esteem. And what I'm saying is that you can see in these letters the map of David's universe, and it can be the map of our universe. Because the only other option is to believe the scientists who don't even know the shape of the earth. They don't even know whether there's a firmament is a restriction, or how far are the stars, or what's the foundation of the earth. And Yahweh even said, you guys ain't going to figure that out. If you could figure it out, I'd reject the whole house of Israel for what they've done, because they've got my goat, but I'm not going to let you figure it out. And I'm not going to reject the house of Israel for all they've done. So there you go. And here we are, time to quit for today. So I'm going to hit stop record. Well, unless somebody want to close out in prayer?
Can you hear me?
Go ahead.
Hallelujah, Abba. Abba, yes, we ask, Father, that I would instill in us this desire, that I will open our Ruach, our Mayod, into seeing this universe that Thou hast prepared for us, has created for us, that we may all add on a little bit of our own personality, which Thou hast given us, and that we can click together as a puzzle to see the big picture, Father, that we may be in one accord with knowing the fundamental that Thou art the Creator, the Provider, and the Righteous One. We praise Thee, Abba. Hallelujah. Wa B'Hashem Yahushua. Amen.
So one last thing. The interesting thing about the ayin dalet hyphenated with ayin tav is it's a word found in a couple places, but one place in particular is Daniel 12:4, where the archangel Gabriel came up to Daniel and he said, hide the words, seal the book until the time of the end. Until the time is spelled ayin dalet hyphenated with the word spelled ayin tav. Until the time. What time is that? And so this whole idea of saying the time when you can see the ayining of the dalet is yoked with, is hyphenated to ayining the tav. And the way I see that, the way I take that is to comprehend, to ayin the dalet, when Yeshua said, I am the dalet. Why is it hyphenated with ayining the tav? Is because each one of these 22 letters, you have to ayin the tav in order to comprehend ayining the dalet. But you have to ayin the dalet before you can comprehend the meanings of the letters tav. So to understand that Yahusha is the Mashiach, and if the word Mashiach means conversation, the communication, these 22 letters are the communication. So the word Mashiach, mem, prefix of Shin Yod Chet. Shin Yod Chet is the conversation, the communication. Mem is the object of, or the place of, or away from, or out of this, the pool. He's the word of the communication. He is that word of that is the communication. That's the meaning of the word Mashiach. People say, well, Mashiach means Messiah, means anointed. Well, it does, but it also means this. It also means the swimmer in the pool. The pool is the Mashiach that he's the swimmer in. He's the life. He's the noon within the mem. He's the dot within the ayin. He's the zadi of the pei. And to see him as that, he's the spark of life placed within the virgin womb. To see that is to ayin the dalet according to the ayining of the tav, which is to see the depth of the meaning of the measure of the balance of the letters. But what are the letters? Ox, house, camel, door, window. They're Yeshua. To ayin the tav, to understand the meaning of the letters according to who is Yahusha, and to understand Yahusha by the meaning of the letters, there's your catch 22 of the 22 letters. And with that, Yahweh Amkam. Till next week. I can't hit stop. I can't stop. Can't stop. I'm hitting it. It won't stop. That's weird.
End the call and then we'll come back.
Do what?
End the call and then we'll come back.
Okay. How do I end the call? Gosh, where is that? Oh, there.